The airport's closed parking lots could cost millions in revenue if they're not open for holiday travel, let alone the inconvenience. DIA does not seem to think that'll happen. A school board candidate says this about students of color.
Some people have a different skill set than academics.
Now she blames her face mask, saying it made it hard to focus on her answers. She's suing the school district to go maskless at candidate events, saying it's a disability rights issue. There is no research backing up the popular perception that bicyclists are the real danger on Colorado's roads. There is research indicating the opposite. And a thrift store find takes a Coloradan back 2 decades. Is that his painting? Next. We are watching each new wildfire warily these days because it was this time last year, early fall, when Colorado's largest fires on record got started. Small fire above Silverthorne is being stubborn today, but it does not seem to be in any position to run into something catastrophic. There are still more than 600 families evacuated while the Ptarmigan fire burns on some steep ground north of town. But that's what's going on in Silverthorne tonight. Rain and hail. Wonderful news for firefighters, though they are preparing to keep the Red Cross shelter at the middle school in Frisco open for yet another night. There are people running for Colorado's 8th congressional district, and the thing is not even drawn yet. Tonight that may change. The Independent Congressional Redistricting Commission needs to approve its final map tonight. They're meeting as we speak. If they go with their latest draft, it won't put any members of Congress in head-to-head matchups with each other, and it would draw the new 8th in Adams and Weld counties. We are getting some feedback, as we always do anytime we talk about cars coexisting with bikes on Colorado's roads. List of folks. Keith, Terry, Doug wrote in last night offering to add their names to a frequent complaint that it's cyclists breaking traffic laws more often than drivers. Well, you know, our Steve Steger found some scientific research on that.
Everybody's breaking the law every time they get onto the roads for the most part, including drivers.
Think about it. When you get behind the wheel of a car, do you follow this sign or do you add 5?
For a driver, when you go 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, it seems like the rational thing to do. And what we found out too is when bicyclists are sort of rolling through a stop sign, they're also doing something to them that is a rational thing to do given the transportation system that's been put in front of them.
CU civil engineering professor Wes Marshall did a survey a few years ago to see why cyclists and drivers break the law. The survey got 18,000 responses. The common perception of drivers is that if cyclists want to be taken seriously, they need to follow the rules of the road. But the survey found drivers break the law just as much, if not more.
Well, for drivers, most of them are trying to save time. Like, that's their biggest concern when they're doing a lot of the things they're doing to break the law. For bicyclists, it's almost self-preservation. Like, they're doing it often to enhance their own safety.
Marshall says the purpose of this is not to point a finger at drivers or cyclists, but the results do point a finger at infrastructure.
We've often put these people in a position where the most rational thing they can do is break the law. What we found is cities with a lot more bike infrastructure, where bicyclists sort of have their place established in the road that they're supposed to be. Like, those are the places where there were sort of fewer bicyclists breaking the law.
And one of the things that Professor Marshall said surprised him, he expected to find that a certain profile existed for a scofflaw cyclist, a young man, for example. What the survey actually found was it's not necessarily the person, it's where they live. If a city has more infrastructure for bikes, cyclists there tend not to break the law as much.
Steve, as somebody who bikes a little and drives a lot, so much of this strikes me as kind of like an absolution of responsibility. Like, well, if I can just convince myself that it's cyclists breaking the law, well, then I don't really have to watch out for them, you know, because they're just kind of buzzing around or whatever else, as opposed to the idea that, trust me, they are watching out for you on a car because they don't want to die, and we in cars need to be watching out for them.
I think the thought is if a cyclist is going to roll a stop sign safely, right, there's no traffic coming or anything like that, they're not going to do something that puts themselves necessarily at risk. And the question here is why that bothers someone more than a driver going 5 miles over the speed limit, which is the same thing. It's also breaking the law.
All right. Lots to think about, and I bet you we'll get more feedback, too. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
The airport has about 2 million reasons to get its affordable parking lots open for the holidays, because DIA makes about $2 million off its Pikes Peak and Mount Albert shuttle lots every holiday season. Plus, opening those long-closed lots would save you money and hassle over more expensive and farther away options. The lots have been closed since May of 2020. Our Marshall Zellinger found one possible reason for a lack of urgency on getting them reopened. The airport gets a cut from privately owned lots.
It might seem odd for a business, DIA, to promote parking somewhere else when DIA makes money when you park at DIA.
Even though we're going to be missing out on some parking revenue, right now, we want our customers to have the best possible experience.
Stacy Stegman is the head of communications at the airport, which has kept the less expensive, $8 a day, Pikes Peak and Mount Elbert shuttle lots closed for more than a year.
The difficulty that we have and continue to have is we cannot find drivers to provide the shuttles that we need to get people from those lots to the airport in a timely fashion. We don't want people sitting out there in the cold, waiting a half an hour, waiting an hour for a shuttle, only to come in, find a long line with TSA, and then be late for their flight.
ABM, which DIA contracts with to provide shuttles from Pikes Peak and Mount Elbert, has a job posting seeking more than 100 shuttle drivers. The listing shows $20 an hour, but it also says graveyard shift, meaning overnight.
DEN does not hire drivers. So that is not a function of the airport. We contract that out to a company. They're the ones that make the decision on what to pay their drivers. We can get the lot open immediately if we can get drivers available to staff the shuttles.
In 2018 and 2019 combined, DIA made $28 million off the Pikes Peak and Mount Elbert lots. The airport makes the bulk of its parking revenue off people parking in the garages and the economy lots just outside the garages. DIA made $172 million in 2018, $181 million in 2019. Those dollar amounts have dropped the last 2 years. But DIA also makes money when you park off-site. DIA has already made $2 million off the 7 off-site parking lots. And because DIA receives a portion of the revenue of anyone operating at the airport, they'll make it whether you park at their site or whether you park at the off-site location that they get a cut from.
We're returning for this in-depth look at this issue, Marshall, because I think things are going to kind of get to a boil as we get into the holiday season, where maybe people who have not traveled as much through the pandemic are going to go out to the airport and they're going to see that inside it's still a mess. Parking outside is now a mess.
Can you imagine if you go expecting to park in those shuttle lots, having to find an alternative, and then go and find a really long TSA line? Something's got to give at some point, and you've got a few months to figure it out. Yeah. But 100 applicants needed for graveyard shuttle drivers, and I'm sure it's beyond graveyard, but 100 applicants needed. That's going to be tough to fill in 2 months.
Yeah, you miss out on a parking lot, then you hit the TSA line, you're on a Greyhound bus to Grandma's in Kansas. That's what happens. Thank you, Marshall. President Joe Biden has picked a well-connected political figure in Colorado to be our state's new U.S. attorney. Cole Finnegan gets the nod. He's a fixture in Democratic politics in our state. He's the former Denver city attorney, also served as chief of staff to former Denver mayor, now Senator John Hickenlooper. For the last 15 years or so, he's been a partner at the private law firm in Denver, Hogan Lovells. If confirmed, he'd succeed Jason Dunn. Biden administration has stated its goal to diversify U.S. attorney and federal judicial positions. Not this time, as they passed up 2 women, Denver City Attorney Kirsten Bronson and Assistant U.S. Attorney Hedel Doshi. It's fall in Colorado and the lawsuits are dropping. School district gets sued by a school board candidate over masks. And a charter school faces a discrimination complaint after a board member compares the pandemic to the extermination of millions of Jews. That's what our kids are watching. How about some pure goodness in the world? His teenage artwork was good enough to sell. Decades later, he came face to face with it again.
I was kind of just in shock, I think. I couldn't believe that it was maybe it.
A thrift store find inspires a new idea. Next. A federal civil rights complaint has been filed against a Douglas County charter school and the Dudco School District over this post by a school board member. Kay Wan posted it to Facebook last month, a meme comparing the pandemic to the Holocaust and the extermination of the Jews. Wan is a school board member at American Academy. Complaint was filed today by attorney Igor Rakin on behalf of a Jewish mother and her kids who attend that school. We've also learned that the Anti-Defamation League sent a letter to Wan earlier this month asking her to consider removing that post. Haven't heard back from American Academy or the Douglas County School District. A school board candidate who has been leading anti-mask campaigns in Colorado is now suing the Cherry Creek School District for forcing her to wear a mask at candidate forums. Shume Navarro filed a federal lawsuit today saying that she has multiple disabilities that prevent her from wearing a mask. Her lawsuit says that she was not able to concentrate and adequately answer questions at a recent candidate forum because she had to wear a mask. At that event, when asked about educational disparities for students of color, Navarro suggested that some students of color were better at other things than learning, saying, quote, "Some people have a different skill set than academics."
I have enjoyed the talk of equity and diversity, but I'm sorry, but I'm sitting here and I am struggling with this thing.
Navarro's attorney told me that they're hoping that a federal judge will intervene before 6:30 tonight when there's another forum. The attorney said that Navarro's fight for a personal mask exemption due to disabilities is a separate issue from her anti-mask political activism. Navarro is quite literally a rising star these days in the Colorado Republican Party. She was named the Colorado GOP 2021 Rising Star this month, and she has risen to that prominence among conservatives by promoting the QAnon conspiracy theory that President Trump's going to round up and execute his opponents, and claiming that both President Biden's election and the COVID-19 pandemic are a Chinese coup.
Tomorrow, Joe Biden, president-elect, is not going to become the president. This has been an ongoing coup that has been perpetrated by the China. Everything. I'm talking about the virus. I'm talking about the lockdowns.
That was Navarro the day before Biden's inauguration. She's also the secretary of the Arapahoe County Republican Party these days. Her lawsuit says that she's seeking monetary damages in addition to an exemption from the district's mask rule. Cherry Creek Schools issued a one-sentence statement saying it disputes her claims and will defend the case.
Feeling like summer today, windy and warm with temperatures in the lower 80s, but it's going to feel a whole lot more like fall with this big storm that's rotating over Colorado. It's going to bring in a few showers tonight, a better chance of heavy rain this time tomorrow night, and maybe some snow down to about 9,500 feet. But we're dealing with gusty winds ahead of that system coming in. Flash flood advisories on the I-70 corridor. Those storms are moving very slowly. Grizzly Creek burn scar, the Pine Gulch burn scar. These are areas we're concerned about tonight. Denver, maybe a brief shower this evening, but it's really in 24 hours that we have the best shot at seeing that beneficial moisture, as is the fire zone in the Silverthorne area. Cooler weather is on the way with some beneficial rain, and we just have a wonderful weather pattern shaping up for about the next 72 hours. Temperatures this evening from the 70s to the 60s, and moving through the next couple of days, we've got cool 60s with showers for Wednesday and Thursday, heading into a mild and dry weekend.
Douglas County's commissioners and Tri-County Health, they're not the first couple to break up and then realize they actually kind of want to get together again. Agreement today means that Tri-County will continue providing basic services, except, the controversial mask stuff, through the end of 2022. Douglas County had already paid Tri-County Health for services through the end of this year. Earlier this month, the Republican commissioners voted to leave Tri-County so that they could form their own health department and be in charge of pandemic restrictions. A man stumbles on his own painting, sold decades ago at a high school art show.
The frame that it's in right now is actually the frame and the mat and everything that it was originally put in by us.
That chance Goodwill find has him thinking about how he might use the discovery for even more goodwill. Next. A couple walked into a Goodwill in Denver recently and walked out with a nostalgic surprise and also a great idea.
As long as I can remember, I've been drawing and painting and being as creative as I can through that medium. I am Jacob Hansen, interior designer. This past weekend on Saturday, my wife and I went to the Goodwill that's close by our house. And then as we were checking out, I looked back at the backside of the store. When I first saw it, we were, like 100 feet away, so it was pretty blurry. And I see this painting, and I think, oh, that looks really familiar.
And then he kind of stops and goes, babe, we have to get out of line. And I think I painted that.
I was 14, so 21 years ago. Everyone had to draw the piece that you see in the painting. It was dried flowers in a vase. The instructor ended up using mine as the example for the rest of the year and then asked me if I wanted to be in the Jefferson County Art Show. It was around $150 I sold it for. Kind of just in shock, I think. I couldn't believe that it was maybe it.
He's like, remember that painting I told you about that I sold when I was a kid and my mom never forgave me? I think this is it.
My signature down here, purple flower in it that I remembered, and I saw that and I was like, oh my God, this is it. There was never a question that we weren't going to buy it back once we found it. We were thinking of putting it up for auction online and donating the proceeds to breast cancer research. It's a small thing that we can do to help out a big cause.
Here's a cool twist to the story. They're thinking about doing an auction to support breast cancer research because they originally went to the Goodwill that day to get something to cheer up a friend who is battling breast cancer right now. Hansen told our photojournalist Byron Reed that he'd love to find out who bought that painting from the art show 21 years ago and where it's been ever since. And when they put together that auction, we'll link to it in this story on 9news.com. A few of you reached out to ask if you could participate in the weekly tradition that we spotlighted here yesterday, the Monday bell ringing for racial justice in Denver. And yes, the bell ringing and prayer is open to everyone at UMC Park Hill Temple Micah. They're at Montview and Forest. They gather every week without exception, noon on Mondays. So it's like WrestleMania, but with Colorado's wildlife, several rounds worth. It's the most Colorado thing we saw today. And your feedback next. The first rule of Animal Fight Club is that you don't talk about Animal Fight Club. You can, however, share a video of the most Colorado thing we saw today. When Colorado's wildlife has business to settle, they apparently do it in Rob's backyard in Coal Creek Canyon. Isn't that cool? September 8th woke up to the racket of two moose rocking antlers together. 10-minute battle. Apparently it was a draw. Both walked away to moose another day. Week later, same place, Rob's backyard, and foxes showed up for Animal Fight Club. This, he says, was apparently a dispute over a dog toy. And Rob had the front row seat to the fox fisticuffs. If animals are also wrestling in your yard, why are you keeping that to yourself? Email that most Colorado thing to next@9news.com or get our attention on Twitter with the hashtag HeyNext. A debate for you in feedback tonight. Furnoff says Denver Airport is no longer DIA. The official FAA acronym is now, and has been for a while, DEN. He instructs us, use the correct identity in your stories. Then Kevin writes in to say, thank you to Marshall for calling it DIA. Where are you on this? What do you call the airport? DIA? DEN? Email me and let me know. And include what you call the stadium where the Broncos play. I want to hear both. I'll see you next time.